everybody? Hello. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. What is going on, everybody? Hello. Hope you all had a great New Year. Hope you all enjoyed it with family, friends, whatever you did. Hopefully, everyone stayed safe and had a great time wherever you were. Everyone, it is a privilege and an honor to be here with you for another year talking some baseball. We started this channel back in late 2019, so we just keep on chugging over here. For some reason, all of you like my potato face. I don't know why. I'm just doing the best I can, I guess. But again, I hope for another great year. And listen, we're not slowing down by any means. We got all the rumors. We have all the things to talk about here. And before we do get to that, everyone, if you can, hit that like button for us. We're going to try and get to 200 tonight to start things off in 2025. That is the first goal of the year, and seeing a lot of familiar faces in the chat. No matter what, any year, I will always be happy about the familiar faces in the chat. We got one of our moderators. We got Zach. We got Braves Thrills. We got Fibs. We got Yo-Yolo, Austin, David, E2 Good. My goodness, someone is firing off some fireworks. Frick! That just scared the bejesus out of me. I think there's a firework right outside my window. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I just almost had a heart attack. Frick. Woo. I don't know where that firework was. Okay. Let's get to it here, everybody. Let's get to it here. Everyone, I'm going to mention this at the end of the show for the people that come in later. We have a huge thing happening tomorrow. I cannot get into details about it. I can't say much about it. In fact, I won't say anything about it. It is a surprise. But it is a huge moment for the channel, for myself, for all of us that have been involved talking baseball here for almost over 5 years now. Not going to talk about it really any further. You all see it tomorrow, but stay tuned for tomorrow. There will be an upload tomorrow at some point. So get ready for that. But sorry to leave you on a cliffhanger there, but I can't say much about it. So everyone, let's get to it here. Alex Bregman. What the heck is going on with Alex Bregman? You know what I think is going on with Mr. Breggy? I think teams are just waiting for other teams or agents named Scott Boras to blink. That's what I think really this all is. Everyone's wondering, what's going on? Where is he heading? What team is he going to land with? Well, I predicted, even though all my predictions are usually wrong, I know that, but people still get so grumpy with me over the predictions. I'm just saying. They're just fun at the end of the day. They're conversation starters, but I do my best. And the Detroit Tigers, I thought, coming into the offseason, were the best fit for Alex Bregman, based off of, where they were competitively, just making it to the postseason, have a young team, need a veteran leader on the team. Sure, you got guys like Tarek Skubal, but I feel like you need another big boy in the room. You know what I mean? A guy that has been there, done that. A guy that knows how to win. Alex Bregman checks off those boxes. Obviously, you got some young guys there. Someone like Hyeseong. I mean, he would basically be pushed down the pecking order, at least for another year, or maybe they could move him in a trade, whatever it may be. But someone like Hyeseong, there is upside with him. So you wonder what happens with him moving forward. But Alex Bregman is a guy that you can put right into that lineup, and it makes a ton of sense. That's what I was thinking coming into the offseason. And of course, you got the AJ Hinch connection. That's just another caveat to add to it. It's not the main thing at the end of the day, but Bregman, I think, is great for the Detroit Tigers. But the problem is, why isn't he a Detroit Tiger by now? I feel like there was momentum building about a week ago, and nothing has happened. And it's like, why hasn't anything happened? So people are starting to speculate. We did the same thing with Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns, at the end of the day, we're thinking, what the heck's going on? This is the best pitcher on the market. Why is he still on the market? Why is he not a Giant? Why is he not back with the Baltimore Orioles? In the end, he was just looking for the best possible deal to go back home, basically, or if a team would be willing to go the extra mile to bring him, to keep him away from going home. Now with Bregman, I think it's a bit of a different situation where you have a guy, I think, he's probably looking for the right deal. And the Tigers, I mean, they have been the one team where you look at the two sides, they seem to be as close, at least according to the reports, based off of what we know. They seem to be the team that's in the driver's seat for him, right? Like I said, checks off a lot of boxes, but why isn't it done? Well, we did have Robert Murray come on today on to Foul Territory, and he said basically, the same thing. Tigers seem to be that team, but there seems to be a holdup. Who knows what it is? He was saying it's a bit of a mystery at this point. Then we also had Cody Stavenhagen. I am botching that probably, and I am so sorry about that. But he went on here today basically saying the same thing, right? Both sides have mutual interest, but there seems to be some kind of a holdup, And then we also got a little something here. Let me make sure. We also got this today from Evan Petzold of the Detroit Free Press. I guess it just came to my attention that this has been updated, and I guess he updated this at some point today, because he did say here that Petzold says that, this is on his podcast today, Petzold says that currently Scott Harris wants to give Bregman 5 years, while Bregman and Boris are looking for 6. So currently the negotiations are being held up by the number of years rather than possible money. And, you keep seeing the same thing, the one sticking point with a lot of people out there when it comes to Red Sox fans, even Tigers fans. I've seen it a little bit, Mets fans, whatever. The one thing people always bring up is, I don't want to get stuck with that contract. I don't want that contract on the payroll, even though it's not their money. I don't know. Whatever. But that seems to be the holdup, right? Because when you take a look at the batted ball metrics, he is pretty middle of the road at this point. I think personally, his best shot moving forward is to go to a ballpark that would fit him well. That's why I think the Red Sox would be great for him, because he can play wall ball. He could have a good old time with the Green Monster there, right? Even if you start to see some regression, I still think he would be a productive player of them. Now, with Detroit, not as much of a hitter-friendly park, right? So I do wonder what that contract would look like long-term. But I do wonder if that's what Scott Harris and the gang think as well. And now, I guess this was updated at some point today. It was brought to my attention that this was supposed to be more speculation. But even, okay, sure, speculation, that's fine. But still, when it comes to, speculation, with this in particular, I think this probably is something in line with what is actually going on, right? I really think it's probably the years at this point, even if it is speculation. And he did say here, rather than possible money issues per his speculation, right? So that's what I think is the holdup, personally. I think it's the years. But then when you think about the bidding, when you think about what's going on with the other teams involved, why would the other teams outbid themselves, right? Sure, you could probably sit there and say, well, why just go out there and get the deal done? Well, they don't need to. Teams are always looking to get the smallest possible deal possible. Right? I know I just said possible twice, right? We would all love to go get a brand new PS5 or whatever it may be as cheap as possible. We're all looking for a coupon somewhere. We're all looking for some kind of a discount on anything out there, right? You're looking for a new car. You're looking for the best price possible, right? Same thing here. The teams, they don't necessarily need to outbid themselves here. They don't need to jump the gun. Sure, that could take the Tigers out of it, but maybe they're just waiting for the Tigers to walk away. Because really, the Tigers are the team that seem to be in the driver's seat at this point. Why take them out when they can just take themselves out? And that is going to lower the leverage for Scott Boras at the end of the day. So that's what I think the situation is. Probably wants 6 years. I would imagine it was probably 7 at one point. They probably came down to 6. Tigers are like, man, we really don't want to do more than 5. So I wonder, the longer they wait, maybe the Tigers are just playing the waiting game here too. Maybe they're waiting for Scott Boras to blink. All right, maybe they want to go 5. Boras wants 6. At some point, Time ticks away. Market starts to unfold a little bit. We're getting closer to spring training. Bregman's starting to sweat. He's giving Boris a call. Hey, man, come on. I don't want to be like Bellinger and Snell and Montgomery, and Chapman last year. I want to actually get somewhere. What's going on? And then maybe they could come to an agreement on, maybe 5 years with some kind of an option, some opt-outs or whatever, 6 years with an opt-out or something like that, right? You go back to Trevor Story. After the lockout, remember the good old lockout? Oh, great times. Remember all that? When it came to that, Trevor Story, remember his market was pretty limited. Remember the Red Sox? You had the Rangers. I think the Giants were involved, if I were to think back to that. I feel like the Yankees were involved to an extent at one point. And I think you had the Red Sox, you had the Giants, you had the Rangers as the 3 main teams that were involved, right? But it came down to the years. The Red Sox gave him the 6-year deal with an opt-out after 4, which, that is going to be coming up here with the Red Sox after this year. Probably not going to end up opting out. So, I think that's just really what it is. I think it's the years at this point. No need for teams to outbid themselves, right? I think they're just waiting for Boris to blink. I think it all comes down to the Tigers right now. Right. But why, if you're the Tigers, because then you could look at it from their situation, right? Well, they don't have to do anything, right? Maybe they could, up it a little, but, until they walk away from the table, I feel like it's really their ball game at this point. It comes down to, right, as the season gets closer, they want to start getting their roster set. They want to start getting things in line. That's what I think really it is. At this point, I think just wait for the Tigers, all right? And if they walk away, then I think, you start to see some of these other teams get in the mix, right? I think then all of a sudden the Red Sox would emerge as the favorite. And I think also there is another part to this as well, is Pete Alonso, right? That's another factor here, especially with the Mets. Do the Mets possibly pivot to Alex Bregman? I've mentioned this a couple of times. You usually don't see teams pivot to a more expensive option. But then again, new things happen all the time. Maybe the Mets maybe the Mets can end up pivoting to some kind of a contract that could work in their favor, right? And maybe Bregman could be on board, maybe say like a very high AAV, kind of like I don't know what kind of some kind of a deal with opt-outs or whatever it may be. Maybe you could do something like that. Or, some kind of like a 6-year, 5-year deal, or, or the Corbin Burns deal, 6 years, opt out after 2, right? Maybe you could see the Mets kind of jump in that aspect. But again, I'll say it one more time. I think the Tigers are in the driver's seat here. I think it really comes down to them, but the teams that are involved, they can sit back and wait, right? And if it goes, I don't think, when you look at it from the Red Sox point of view, yes, Bregman would make the team better. But they're not going to they don't need to get aggressive at this point, right? To me, Bregman, you could make the argument that he's a need. But you could also make the argument, could he be more of a luxury? I don't want to say luxury, that's not the right word, but do you necessarily need to go get Bregman if you're the Red Sox? No. You could go to other options. You can go look at Arenado. You can go look at Taylor Ward, right? I would like Bregman the most. But the Red Sox, right, they're not fully there yet. They haven't made the playoffs in a while now. So, I think when the Red Sox actually get to that spot, that's when I think they will get aggressive. I don't think they need to at this point, especially with the circumstances. We'll see what ends up happening here, but Tigers game, it's up to them. We'll see what ends up happening here. Now, moving on here. Of course, I forgot to get the buttons set. Of course I did. Oh my goodness, we're always just goofing up over here. There we go. We got the buttons set now. And I had the wrong button on this entire time. There we go. Pete Alonso, let's go talk about him. And we got a bit of a surprise team involved here. Now, before we get to the surprise team, Robert Murray once again hopping on foul territory. And he says, and we've heard this a bit, right? We've heard this from other people out there as well. There's a big gap, right? I think the last we had heard, 3 years, $90 million. That seemed to be the offer on the table, right? Pete Alonso, Scott Boras, probably looking for 6 years, 7 maybe. Well, I think it's a matter of who, can they come together in the middle somewhere? We'll see. But Robert Murray, he is reiterating this fact of the big gap. Could this open up the door for a team like the Angels? Oh man, those Angels. They never change. They see the big player on the market. Artie Moreno loves these guys, man. Will Pete Alonso head to the Angels? I mean, listen, I'd love it. I want the Angels to compete. I want them to do things, right? I've been waiting for an Angels team to actually compete. Listen, I'd get pretty excited about it if he went to the Angels. I mean, whatever. People might hate it, but I'd think it's pretty fun. But according to Jon Heyman on his Bleacher Report stream, he did say the Angels are weighing a pursuit of Pete Alonso. Now, what will it come down to? We'll just have to wait and see on that. But Pete Alonso, it's going to get very interesting when it comes to the years. That's what I wonder. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing it going more than 5, right? We've also heard the Blue Jays could be involved to an extent, or we've heard that from some reports out there. Seems like really, unless I'm missing a team, I feel like I'm missing a team here. The Mets, Angels, Blue Jays. I feel like there's one more team in that mix. Who's the other team? I'm going blank. Oh, someone help me out. It's not the Yankees anymore. I don't know. I'm going blank on it. But those are the 3 teams that I can remember off the top of my head. I see you in the chat, Swaggenberger. Oh, yeah, the Giants. That was right. The Giants. Goodness gracious. Yes, we have heard the Giants as well. I think the Giants would be a great fit. I mean, I feel like they need another bopper in that lineup. That would be amazing if you ask me. I think the Angels would be pretty fun, though. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Robbie, what do you do with Nolan Schanuel? I like me some Nolan Schanuel. But Jon Heyman, he did mention here today. And remember, Jon Heyman, with good old Heyman. Listen, he's in Scott Boras' back pocket. I mean,
I can't even believe it.
Can't even believe it. But he did say Nolan Schanuel could move out to left field. So I'm guessing he is hearing that from someone within. We'll see. But, Schanuel, right? He's a first baseman. Can he move out to a corner outfield spot? Sure. And then I see you in the chat here. John Morosi said the Mariners. I feel like the Mariners, I don't know. I don't buy the Mariners. I really don't. I just don't see it. You know what I mean? I don't see the Mariners. I just don't see them spending the money. We'll get to them in just a little bit. But with this situation, if you move Nolan Schanuel out to left field, well, then you got to figure out what you're doing with Taylor Ward. I mean, he has been in trade rumors, right? Again, I feel like this market is being held up by Bregman here. That's kind of the thing, because if Bregman ends up going to the Tigers, well, then the Red Sox, they could pivot. They could either go to Arenado or they could go to Taylor Ward. So I feel like you got a log jam in this market right now. I do think things are going to pick up at some point. I have been told, right, there's a lot of teams during this period, right, from Christmas to New Year's, a lot of the teams are not in the front office. So keep that in mind, right? A lot of them are working remote because it is the holiday season at the end of the day. You got to remember, hey, they got families too. They got things that they're doing during the holidays. So, but I do think things are going to start picking up here over the next week. But the Angels, they have to move some pieces around. Would I like the addition of Pete Alonso for the Angels? Yeah, I would think it's fun. I just like teams that make moves at the end of the day. So, of course, I find it fun. But you would have to move Taylor Ward. And again, I think his market, there are teams out there that could really go for him right now. I still think one of these small market teams would be great to add him. Like the Pirates, I think could make sense if you added someone like him. They could use another bopper there. Maybe the Reds possibly, something out there. And again, the Red Sox, he has been mentioned as no reports or anything, but people have speculated that he could be a right-handed bat that the Red Sox could go for. So the Angels, I find it interesting. I feel like right now they're just kind of hanging around here. Again, a lot of teams, at least in my opinion, are just waiting around at the table. They're waiting for something to move, right? And we'll see. We have a little something on Hyeseong Kim. Let's talk a little Hyeseong Kim. Now, if you don't know who Hyeseong Kim is, right? He is, I don't want to say the next Hyeseong Kim, but there's a lot of similarities. There. High contact hitter, very disciplined at the plate, has speed, good defensively, moves around in the infield. Very similar to Hyeseong Kim. A very good career over in the KBO. Taking a look at his career numbers in the KBO, hitting .304, had a .364 on base going back to 2017. I mean, look at the numbers this past year in the KBO. Had a .383 on base. Not bad at all. You're not going to get a lot of power with him. Again, it's very similar to Hyeseong Kim. He's 25 years old. So this would be a very nice player to add. Now, we have been getting a little something here on Hyeseong Kim. Remember, the deadline for him is tomorrow. Right? They got the posting period. That ends tomorrow at 5 p.m. So the decision has to be made. Now, we got this from... Is it Gage? Is it Gage? I'm sorry. But he tweets about the Mariners a lot. I don't know. He put this out there. I'm not saying this is a credible source, but there's not really a whole lot out there on Hyeseong Kim. But he did say this. He said he got this from an agent. I don't know. Again, take it with a grain of salt. There's just not really a whole lot out there. But he's saying it's looking like the Mariners, right? Saying that Hyeseong Kim has chosen the Mariners. I guess the agent went on to say if it's wrong, it will be deleted. So I don't know what that means. I mean, that just makes it like, what? I don't get that. But there is that out there. Then we got this from the page KBO in English. Again, grain of salt. I don't know. There's not much out there, right? But he says here, one team to watch with a last-minute push, the LA Angels. I guess he's speculating they would offer the most money. It feels like speculation, but really, according to reports that we've gotten recently over the past week or so, it seems to be down to the Mariners and the Angels. He did say here as well, the Yankees did scout him while he was in Korea. So we'll see if they could become a possibility. But from what I've read from more credible resources out there is that it seems to be down to the Mariners and the Angels. Now, when it comes to Hyeseong Kim, a guy that mostly plays second base, but he can play some shortstop. He can play some third if needed. He moves around. I think I've even seen he's played some center field. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I feel like he has played at least a little outfield, but he's very speedy, so I could see him maybe playing some outfield in a pinch. But if a team is looking for a second baseman out there, I think he would be a great fit. And the one team that seems to be connected with him for a while now are the Mariners. They definitely need a second baseman. They need a hitter like this, in my opinion. A guy that makes a lot of contact, gets on base. He's a very disciplined hitter. The Mariners were terrible last year when it came to the plate discipline. A ton of strikeouts, had the most strikeouts in Major League Baseball last year. This seems like kind of a guy that would be a nice fit with the Mariners. Now, I think the Angels can make some sense too. He's more of a clean fit with the Mariners, but I think the Angels are interesting because you got Anthony Rendon at third. You got Luis Rengifo at second. So there's not really a whole lot of wiggle room right there. But now it comes down to, I think, Anthony Rendon. Anthony Rendon, I think, is so interesting. I think he is one of the bigger storylines to pay attention to this spring training. I actually wonder if the Angels have got, you got to be thinking, if you're a player like Christian Moore on the Angels right now, you have a really good shot to try and win a spot on the opening day roster. If Anthony Rendon ends up not having a great spring, or the Angels just aren't liking what they're seeing out of him, they could just cut him. You're going to have to pay the guy anyway. If he's going to hurt your team, then if you have a chance to be better, then why not just pull the Band-Aid off now and just DFA and just pay the money? Yeah, you're going to have to pay the guy anyway. So why pay him if he's only going to hurt your team? So I do wonder if Angels, spring training, Christian Moore, let's say he's just on fire and he is just showing that he is ready, he is hungry for the major leagues. Well, then, could you go that route? But again, I think it's a wait and see. I do wonder how far the Angels would be willing to go. If this report, is accurate. I mean, he's speculating the Angels will offer the most money. Well, will they? I mean, I don't know. Will they offer the most money? Again, you have a bit of a law, unless you DFA Rendon now, and unless you just cut bait while you still can. I guess you could do that, but I don't know if the Angels would like to do that at this point. I feel like they should go into a wait and see mode, or maybe you could bring him in. But then there's just not really anywhere he could, at least right now, where he could slot in, and he's an opening day guy for you, right? So that's where I think. Again, I think the Angels, it depends. I don't know what they're thinking in their front office. I mean, no one knows. I mean, who knows what they're thinking? Maybe they see something here where they'd like to pay the man and they'd like to give him a big contract, right? If there is a team that could outbid the Mariners, I could see the Angels doing it. The Mariners, when it comes to the money, they are pretty tight. They're a team that likes to be restricted when it comes to paying players out there. Will they give Hyeseong Kim what he wants? Now, he's not going to be, completely through the roof expensive. I think you'll see a pretty modest deal. But again, when it comes down to the Mariners, will they do it? I think this circumstance fits the bill for them. I did make an updated trade predictions video, or not trade predictions, free agent predictions video the other day. And I did say, I think the Angels outbid, right? Because the Angels, they do wacky things all the time. They do things that make you scratch your head all the time. And I mean, would it be surprising for them to outbid the Mariners and get a guy where he doesn't even slot into your opening day roster at this point? Maybe some other moves can be made. Maybe the Angels can land him. We'll see. We will see what ends up happening with Hyeseong Kim. But we do have some updates on some other players. I actually forgot to put Anthony Santander in here because I put Flaherty and Hoffman update. Apologies. There is also a little something on Anthony Santander. What's going on with his market? Well, we had this from John Morosi today, and thank you to Tigers Torquemoil. He put the quote that I was looking for. The Tigers and the Blue Jays are near the top of the list, if not the number 1 and number 2 potential suitors for Anthony Santander. We also got this from Hector Gomez. Hector Gomez. Listen, Hector Gomez, say what you will, but he does seem to be a bit more in tune when it comes to the Latin players. So, Hector Gomez saying here, Astros are the biggest threats for the Blue Jays in Anthony Santander sweepstakes, while the Angels have offered similar offer than the Jays. I feel like the Tigers at this point, I would watch out for the Tigers. Now, getting back to Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander is not going to get as many years as Bregman. And Santander would bring more power to that lineup, would bring in my opinion, again, when you look at it from the point, I think Bregman would be great for the Tigers, but what Bregman will not beat Santander in is power. And I feel like the Tigers could use some of that. I wonder if the Tigers at some point think, okay, this is how far we're going to go for Bregman. Santander could, that market is starting to move. Can they just walk away? Like, again, get back to what I said earlier about Bregman. Could they just walk away and say, listen, but the difference, though, when it comes, again, I will repeat myself. I think they're in the driver's seat for Bregman. So it's not like they're in danger of possibly losing him to another team. At least that's what I think based off of what I've been reading. It really comes down to if they are simply just firm on what they want to give Breggy, then they can just go to Santander here and say, okay, let's do 4 years, $90 million, something like that. I have seen a number. Well, actually, sorry, it's right here. Hector Gomez, he did put this yesterday. He was hearing the offer was 4 years, $82 million. So could the Tigers essentially walk away and maybe beat this? Possibly. But it seems like these 3 teams right now are great fits. And listen, I speculated on the Astros a little while ago on my one gift for each team video. I did say Santander would be a nice gift for the Houston Astros, right? You just lost Kyle Tucker. Well, you didn't lose Kyle Tucker. You traded him. But that would replace the left-handed, not fully replace, but it would give you at least a good option moving forward for a lefty bat in your lineup. I think he would be great with the Astros. And obviously, they just cleared out a lot of money, that you would have had to pay Kyle Tucker. So I think the Astros can make some sense. And getting back to the Angels, again, it's kind of one of those things where it's not really a clean fit. I'll tell you this right now. If Santander went to the Angels, oh boy, that defense in the outfield is not going to be very good. I'll tell you that right now. Because Jorge Soler, Santander would basically bounce back and forth between DH and a corner outfield spot. Then at that point, Joe Adele, Moniak, when are these guys even playing at that point? So the Angels, their outfield defense would take a hit here. But, man, that would be a pretty fun addition to this lineup, especially if Mike Trout stays healthy. What a middle of the order that could end up being. Trout, Santander, and Soler, if he's on top of his game. That's a lot of power in the middle of the order, man. That could end up being a pretty solid lineup. So, Matthew Kerr, listen, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. I don't think Soler should play the field. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ended up playing in the field, even if it was just a little bit, right? Because at some point, but you got to think from Santander, he's not a good defender either. So it's like really, doesn't really matter between the two. I think Santander is a bit better, right? But hey, some points, maybe Santander needs to DH. Actually, how many times did Santander DH this past year? I feel like it wasn't many. 25 games. I could see that, right? Where Soler goes out and plays in the outfield a little bit. In the outfield, he was mainly in the outfield for the Braves, which was not a great scenario. It kind of had to because they had all the injuries. But I could see that where Santander would be the full-time outfielder there. And then, just to kind of get him off his feet. Sometimes you got to remember, Santander, man, he's a big guy. He's a big guy. 6'2", 230. My goodness, if I was that big and running around, goodness gracious, I would want to DH some days too. Now, let's get to the last team. The Blue Jays. The Blue Jays. Sorry, I keep slamming on my desk. I have such a bad habit of doing that. I got to stop doing that. But the Blue Jays, I think, out of all of these teams, well, you could say the Astros are a great fit too. But where I see the advantage of the Blue Jays, I feel like they would be willing to go that extra mile for the money. And supposedly, they have the biggest offer on the table, according to the reports. 4 years, $82 million. Well, who knows if that's the biggest offer? Maybe it's probably one of at least the highest offers at this point. I feel like out of all the teams, he makes the Blue Jays make the most sense. They need another power bat, and if Vlad ends up going elsewhere next year and you can't figure out an extension, well, at least you still have a power bat in your lineup if he leaves. I will say this, though. If the Blue Jays, if they end up having the highest offer, or at least one of the highest offers, and he does not go there, hot take time. Hot take. I think they should just sell. If they can't land Santander and they're just being used for leverage again, sell the team. Or not sell the team, but sell. Just start fresh here. Because if you can't land him, who are you going to land? At this point, it's like you're missing out on all these guys. It's like, who is going to go there? At that point, I think Santander, if If you don't land him, I would start pivoting, man. I would start going a different direction at that point. I see you in the chat. Lock smart. Toronto would be cooked. I don't know. Maybe you could land someone else. Possibly. You got a couple of guys. Maybe Profar. Maybe you could do that. I don't know. But then again, yes, they traded for Andres Gimenez. You got to remember with Gimenez, though, he's still pretty young. He's on a long-term deal. I mean, if the Blue Jays essentially just out of nowhere went into a rebuild right now, I mean, you're going to have Gimenez on the roster for a long time. So, he's only 26. So he'd be fine, So if you needed to take a couple of years to reset, Gimenez is still going to be a guy under 30 years old. So I don't really see the Gimenez move necessarily signaling that the Blue Jays are all in at this point, because you can kind of go both ways. Now, again, I'll repeat myself. If you don't land Santander, man, I mean, maybe you could pivot to Profar. I'll wait on that. If they don't land, I would say Santander or Profar. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. I hope they get him for their sake. If they don't, trade Vlad, trade Bo, trade Kevin Gausman, get back whatever value you can get at that point, and just start fresh. Start fresh. That's just my opinion. We'll see what ends up happening. But we got a couple other reports here. We have a little something on Jack Flaherty. And we've been seeing since the Orioles did not want, well, I guess the Orioles did put a pretty good offer down for Corbin Burns, but it wasn't enough to keep him from going back home, In the end, they did not want to go that extra mile to keep him there. Could they turn to Jack Flaherty? Right, that has been rumored out there. Ken Rosenthal has touched on that. He did mention that in this article. But then we also got Rich Dubroff. Hold on, Rich. Is he the... Okay, yeah. He's from BaltimoreBaseball.com, covering the Orioles. He talked today with Foul Territory. And he said that he doesn't think Flaherty... He said he would be surprised if Flaherty would go back to the Orioles, right? Because I'll be honest, when I think of Flaherty in the Orioles, he was not doing very well there, right? Let's go look at Mr. Flaherty here. I mean, if you go look at the numbers, it was a couple of years ago, whatever. But, he was not bad for St. I know he was still trying to get himself right. He had been missing a lot of time the last couple of years prior to that. So, there were probably some kinks he needed to work out, right? He had over 100 innings with the Cardinals. He had right around league average numbers. He showed some okay things with the Orioles. The strikeout rate was pretty good. He got his walks down, but he's giving up a ton of home runs. And then he put it all together this year. Ended up pitching very well. That's the Flaherty that you want from what we saw this year. But again, I just find it just something feels off with Flaherty going back to Baltimore. They brought him in. He got worse when he went there. I don't know. Maybe there are some other factors we don't know of that came into play. Maybe personal reasons. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Because you saw that with Lucas Giolito. Remember that when he got moved and he was just getting lit up. Right, with the Angels and the Guardians, and I guess, he was having some off-the-field personal things going on that was affecting him. So who knows what was going on? I'm not saying anything. I don't know anything. I'm just pointing it out. Who knows? But Flaherty was not good for the Orioles. He was not. So it just feels just too fresh, really, at this point. I don't know. I guess he could. If you're the Orioles, you really want to bring someone in to replace that production, Tomoyuki Sagano, that's fine. But that's not Corbin Burns at the end of the day. Flaherty won't be Corbin Burns either, but at least you're bringing in a guy that just had a lot of success this past year. I personally think if I were to just make a guess right now, I feel like Flaherty ends up with the Giants or maybe the Angels. The Angels would have to go out of their comfort zone to, they did it with Yusei Kikuchi, bringing in a pitcher on a longer-ish kind of a deal, 3 years for Kikuchi. Artie Moreno usually does not like longer deals for pitchers, but they did it with Kikuchi. Maybe they could figure out something with Flaherty. I would love that. I think that would be great. I mean, obviously winning a World Series, that would bring some oomph to the Angels, in my opinion. A team that wants to compete and you're bringing in a winner. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Angels, but will they do it? If not, well, hey, the Giants, they wanted Corbin Burns. So I think that would be a pretty decent 1-2 punch. And Flaherty, the difference, if the Angels were to go after him, he would be the guy. He would be the opening day guy. Yusei Kikuchi would be the 2. With the Giants, he would be the 2 in the rotation. But I think San Francisco, that rotation would be pretty nice with Flaherty there. You got Logan Webb. You got Robbie Ray. I mean, Flaherty would be your 2. Robbie Ray would be your 3. Hicks, Harrison, they would round out the rotation. I think Flaherty would be a great option for the Giants. That's just me, though. That's just me. But we'll see. Keep your eyes on this. And we also had a little something today on Jeff Hoffman. Where is my Jeff Hoffman article? Of course, I have lost another art. Here it is. Jeff Hoffman, reportedly seeking a deal in the same range as Clay Holmes. I mean, no surprise. No surprise. It's been rumored that teams are looking at Jeff Hoffman as a starter. He used to be a starter, wasn't very good in that role, but he's gotten himself together as a reliever over the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of relievers convert into starters and do very well. I think Hoffman, the fact that he has gotten the experience over the last few years here as one of the best relievers in baseball, he has a 4-pitch mix. That's a guy that I think could step back into the starter role. And I think he could be pretty solid. Hoffman has been a shutdown guy at the back end of the Phillies bullpen. So no surprise, right? Clay Holmes, he ended up getting, what was it, a 3-year? Was it a 3-year 36 for Clay Holmes? What was the deal for Clay Holmes? I feel like it was 336. Am I wrong? What was it? 3 years 38. Oh, I was so close. So close. Yeah, I could see that. Right. Now, if I'm thinking of some teams, that could use some starting pitching, I mean, I'll go back to the Blue Jays again. You want a starting pitcher. Well, if you're not able to bring in any of the big boys, well, maybe they could be a home for Jeff Hoffman. Hey, we'll let you start. We'll put Yariel Rodriguez in the bullpen, whatever it may be. We'll give you a chance to start here. We'll give you 3 years, $40 million. I could see the Blue Jays getting desperate, maybe doing something like that. I did mention the Cubs the other day. I feel like the Cubs could be a pretty fun fit, and I feel like they could give him a situation that could ease him into the rotation. You could basically have Javier Assad be your long reliever, because Hoffman, at the end of the day, he's going to have to build up his innings, right? It's not like he can just automatically go out there and throw 200 innings. All right, he's going to have to build it up over the next couple of years. So maybe you could see a situation where they put Assad in the long relief role. Hoffman, he can be there in the 5 spot. That could be pretty fun, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think Oakland is going to do anything. I mean, maybe they could make another addition to the rotation, but someone that's pretty cheap. Maybe like Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, one of those guys. But I don't know, maybe they could get creative here. Maybe they can get crafty if they offer him a spot for the rotation. Maybe, Could you see the Guardians maybe do something there? I don't know. Again, I feel like a lot of rotations there. Could you see the Angels? Again, I just mentioned them with Jack Flaherty. Maybe that could be a guy where you could bring him in on the cheaper side. And he could end up getting a spot, but then kind of what happens there with Reed Detmers? Does he go to the bullpen? Something like that. Could the Giants? I mean, they did it with Jordan Hicks. Could they do the same thing? Oh, KMD, you're right. I said Oakland. Dang it. Sacramento. I got to start getting that in my head. But maybe the Giants. They did it with Jordan Hicks. Maybe that could be a spot. Could you imagine the Giants getting 2 former relievers in their rotation? I think to me, I would like the Cubs idea. I mean, maybe the Orioles. Maybe the Orioles. I had a hilarious comment the other day on my predictions because I'm kind of thinking like, all right, do the Orioles really want to go out there and spend a ton of money on the pitching? I know you're seeing the Jack Flaherty stuff, but I don't know. Will he want to go there? That's the only thing. I just wonder how much mutual interest there actually is. I did predict Lance Lynn to go to the Orioles, and I got a hilarious comment. It made me laugh quite a bit. What did it say? He said something like if the Orioles end up with Lance Lynn, I think he said like I'll jump off a cliff or something. I can't remember exactly what he said. It was so funny. So funny. But, maybe that could be a fallback option for Baltimore if you did want to add another guy with some upside possibly. Then yeah. And if it doesn't work out as a starter, he can do well in the bullpen. So maybe the Orioles. Maybe that could be a landing spot. Could he go back to the Rockies? I don't think so. I don't know. But everyone, that's all I got here for tonight. Again, we're really in a holding pattern right now, just waiting on Alex Bregman. That is the big thing that we're all waiting on. I guarantee I'm going to get off here and then something's going to happen. It's probably going to happen, isn't it? But yeah, Fibs, I see you here in the chat. O's 100% chance we'll be fine with a Trevor Rogers, Cade Povich. Yes, and yes, they do got young guys there too. So that's another thing for the Orioles. Would Jeff Hoffman be a great fit there? Probably not. And then I believe we had a super chat. Giants fan 28, $2 super chat. Giants refused to trade Bryce Eldridge for Tucker. That's interesting. With Tucker, again, you could think about it from the Giants' point of view. They have a hard, or at least they seem, I don't know. Fabian went on foul territory not too long ago, and he did point out that free agents, yes, it seems maybe like on the surface they're having a hard time landing guys, but he did mention how all of these guys have had some kind of an issue. Like, Bryce Harper was afraid of the ballpark. Aaron Judge he had a legacy with the Yankees. Shohei Ohtani was pretty much always going to go to the Dodgers. He had a home that he was building in Southern California. So, yeah, sure. At the end of the day, the Giants, maybe they had those things working against them. With Kyle Tucker, that could have been maybe an option for them where he plays there for a year and then they could sign him. But Bryce Eldridge, I think, is a guy with a lot of upside. I don't think it would be responsible to trade a top prospect for 1 year of, even though he's a great player, the Astros got Cam Smith, but Cam Smith at the end of the day, you just drafted him, so it's almost like it never even happened. And you got Isaac Paredes. Like, that was, I think, the deal. The Giants didn't really have a deal like that. So, but that would have been pretty fun if they had gotten Tucker. I think that would have been a nice fit. But everyone, I'm out of here. I'm going to wrap things up. Again, everyone, look out for tomorrow. Again, we have a pretty cool thing happening on the channel tomorrow. I'm not going to go into detail about it. It's a pretty big moment on this channel over the last 5 years that we've been doing this now. It's I would say a career moment for me. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned. Make sure your notifications are turned on and look out for an upload at some point tomorrow. I'm very excited to share that with all of you. It's going to be awesome. Like to present that to all of you. It's a big moment for me, for sure, but it's a big moment for, I think, everyone that's been supporting the channel as well. So, again, you've all shown so much support over the last 5 years, and I'm just very excited to share that with all of you because you all helped get to where we got today, and it's been a fun ride. So it'll be cool to see that tomorrow. So, but stay tuned, everyone. I'm out of here. Go have yourself a good rest of your night. I'm going to go work on a couple of things and get to bed soon. I am a tired boy. I got to get out of here. But everyone, hit that like button on the way out for me. Subscribe if you are new. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.